Hello, my dear Franken friends, and welcome to Spookyou, your one-stop shop for all things ghastly and ghoulish. I'm your host, Barnabas Vixen. How horrible of you to join us. Curl up, invite your friends, and by all means, make sure those lights are out. That way it's harder to tell what may or may not be lurking around you. There's nothing like a good mystery, am I right? Tonight will feature a singular tale of devilish design curated by those wicked weavers of woe. And without further ado, allow me to pass the reins on over to our vivacious voiceover virtuoso Trey Falco for tonight's sinister story. Please keep all limbs and side covers at all times. We wouldn't want anything to go missing now, would we?
I want to start off by clarifying one thing before I start. The company I work for is not the SCP. I know there are a lot of similarities between the encounters which I describe and some of the SCP files, but my company has nothing to do with that. We are, just as I stated before, a standalone security company that provides technical security, surveillance, and physical protection services to clients. Now, I'm going to start this post with a story that still runs chills down my spine. While I was stationed at an office complex similar to the one in HQ where I am now, I had a number of strange experiences. Our job was mostly staying in the guardhouse and conducting mandatory patrols around the complex at the start and at the end of the shift, him taking one side while I took the other. A few months back, I came to my shift as usual with my partner, so on that day we finished our initial patrol and returned to the guardhouse. We usually talk to pass the time, but this time he seemed unapproachable and quiet, so I figured I should leave him alone and continue to read my book for the time being. Our shift was almost over when we decided to do our final sweep, so we split up to do our rounds. After I was done, I came back, but my partner wasn't there. I figured he wasn't done with his sweep yet, so I shrugged it off and continued passing the time. When he wasn't back in over 30 minutes, though, I radioed him. No response. He was nowhere on the cameras either. Figuring he may be in trouble, I went out to search for him, frustrated that he wasn't back and it was almost the end of our shift. And as I'm patrolling, I see him in the distance across the parking lot, turned away from me and looking at something. I called out his name and he turned around. I waved to him, telling him to get back, and he waved back to me. I took it as a signal that he understood what I said and returned to the guardhouse. The guys from the next shift were already there and I went home, telling them my partner would do the debriefing. Not 2 hours later, I got a phone call from the same guys. They told me that my partner had never showed up, so they went looking for him, thinking something may have been wrong. Sure enough, and soon after they started the search, he was found dead. I was shocked, to say the least. I asked them when he had died and how, since I had seen him literally minutes before they arrived. And they told me that it wasn't possible for me to have seen him then, and I asked why, and the answer they gave me chilled me to the bones.
Sorry for the interruption, dear listener, but I just had to remind you. If you're enjoying this series, then make sure you head on over to Amazon and pre-order the book from this talented author, Tales of a Security Guard, set to release on January 30th. Seriously, take the time to pause this video and go give it a look-see. Without these authors, our vivacious voiceover virtuoso would be picking pennies out of the couch to feed his family instead of narrating these amazing stories. At least now he has a hobby. I mean, would you take that away from him? I didn't think so. Not only does it include the 12-part series that you're watching right now, but it also includes the Night Guard series that we've previously narrated on this channel, and more terrifying tales to fuel your insomnia-induced night readings. And while you're at it, make sure you head on over to their Facebook page, Scary Stories with BB, to keep up to date with everything that they're doing. And I'd also like to mention that this author is not our sponsor, nor have we been paid in any way to bring you this message. No. So, we here at Spookyou just want to remind you, our listeners, that the authors behind these wonderful stories need to eat too. And not only that, but they do deserve to be compensated for the work that they do. That about wraps it up for this break, so back to your story.
Apparently he had died 10 hours ago. The camera recordings confirmed it. He was seen wandering off camera into the garage and then never seen coming out. One of the guys discovered his body there. No visible wounds or marks on him. HQ recovered the body but shared no details about the cause of his death. So that begs the question. If he died 10 hours ago, then who the fuck did I see in the parking lot? And moreover, who in fuck's name was with me in the guardhouse for 10 hours between patrols? In that same place, in addition to our patrol around the complex, we also had to check inside buildings and make sure everything was all right. So one time on my shift, I'm in one of the office buildings doing my sweep on the second floor, and I move to the stairs to get to the next floor. I climb up, and as I do, I see that the sign on the wall says second floor again. I dismiss it, thinking I must have been on the first floor prior to this and just got confused. I move up one floor, and again, the sign says second floor. I stare at the sign in bafflement and decide to try the door. Locked. I climb up one more floor, and again, I'm on the second floor. And I knew by this point that something was wrong. I mean, the building itself was only 3 floors, and I had already climbed at least 4. I decided to descend the stairs as fast as I could, but every time I passed by the floor sign, it said second floor. I ran until I was exhausted, trying doors along the way, all of which were locked. I leaned over the railing to look down the stairs and saw the staircase going down infinitely into a black abyss, and same for above. I radioed my partner, but there was no response, and no signal on the phone either. I decided to sit down and think about everything, already half accepting my impending demise, and it must have been hours there that I sat and ran down the stairs intermittently when I suddenly heard the sound of a door opening below. And I was so relieved to actually hear something besides my own footsteps that I didn't even think about the potential dangers it might entail. And I rushed down and to my relief saw the sign for floor 1, the door open as I had left it when I entered the building, and I bolted out of there and straight to the guardhouse, barging in through the door. My coworker was reading the newspaper, only shooting me a glance before returning to his reading. And when I accused him for not answering his radio, he looked confused, stating he never got any call from me. And I asked him why he hadn't looked for me when I hadn't returned in hours, and again, he looked confused. He glanced at his watch, and then at me, and simply said,
"You've been gone for 5 minutes."
HQ issued a rule after that. The office building was off limits for all personnel after 8 p.m. One time during my shift as I was finishing my patrol, I heard my coworker's voice in the distance. He sounded like he was in distress, so I followed the sound, calling out his name. As I approached the source of the voice, it became obvious that my coworker was in the looping building, begging me to help him. I drew my gun and told him to hold on, ready to risk my life for my partner, and just as I was about to enter, I heard his voice behind me, calling my name. I turned around and sure enough, there he was. I looked back at the building and the cries from the person in the building stopped completely. The coworker confirmed that it wasn't him who was in the building, and as I turned back to the source of the voice, I could only mutter to myself, "You sneaky son of a bitch." One thing that happened to one of the other guys during one of the shifts still puts me on edge. The guy named Chris was in the guardhouse with his partner, and the partner decided to go for a patrol earlier. Chris continued reading his book as the partner left the place, and 1 minute later he heard the door shut behind him and the thud of his footsteps of his partner inside.
"Forget something, huh?"
he asked, not looking up from his book. The partner put his hand on Chris's shoulder and Chris raises his head, ready to turn around. And as he does, he sees his coworker pass next to the window outside. Chris froze, staring at the window at the reflection of the figure standing behind him. He says he felt the grip on his shoulder tightening. Bracing himself as well as he could, he swiftly turned around, drawing his gun and pointing it at nothing. No one was there. I checked the recordings of the camera feed in the guardhouse, and sure enough, no one was there with him. And I could see Chris on the camera sitting up, visibly becoming tense, and turning around with his gun drawn before looking around and finally holstering his weapon. He looked like a crazy person from this angle. I never figured what that was or the other occurrences in the complex, but HQ issued new orders shortly after. The guards who were on the shift were to stay together at all times, even patrolling in pairs and communicating via code sentences every 30 minutes to ensure their partner wasn't an imposter. Chris told me of another incident he had during one of his shifts. He said that he saw someone suspicious on camera in front of one of the offices way after working hours, so he went to investigate. Halfway through, the partner radioed him and said he had lost the person out of sight. It was strange though, because apparently he only turned around for 1 second and the guy on the camera was gone. However, he said he thought he noticed movement on the camera which overlooked the windows of the office from the outside. He said it was on the second floor. Chris decided to investigate it. As he's doing his sweep on the second floor, his partner radios him again halfway into his patrol and asks him if he found anyone. And Chris says no, asking him if he sees anything on the camera. The partner first says no, and then he pauses mid-sentence. And Chris asks him to confirm what he said, and the partner tells Chris he should come back to the guardhouse. Chris wanted to finish the sweep, but the partner insisted he come back to the guardhouse at once. Frustrated, he returned and asked him what was wrong. You really didn't see anything in there?" the partner asked. When Chris said no, the partner called him over to look at one of the camera feeds. He rewinds the footage to where he can see Chris in the window with the flashlight and tells him to pay close attention. Chris wasn't alone in there. When his beam flashed across the window, it caught a silhouette staring at the camera. And the next few seconds of the recording were spent by him talking to his partner on the radio, and in addition to the window silhouette, there was now a person standing directly behind him. As Chris moved through the room, more and more people became visible in the room, all staring directly at him while he was completely oblivious to their presence. After that, he saw himself exiting the building, and while the people in the building were disappearing, or more like blending in with the darkness. Overall, I've worked in various fucked up places, but this one seems to be the most dangerous and aggressive one, with even HQ not being able to predict some of the things. There are some more stories to share, but I'll post those another time. If any of you know of anyone who has similar experiences to mine as a security guard, chances are we work for the same company.
Welcome back, my darling deviants. Well, tell me, did you enjoy that twisted tale? Of course you did. I knew you had that air about you, that hunger for the horrific and the macabre. So, did we spook you? If not, then file a complaint with our complaint department detailing all accounts of non-spookiness you found in this video, and we'll get back to you in 2 to 3 millennia. Give or take a business eon or two. However, if you've enjoyed what you've just heard this evening, then make sure you leave a like on this video and annihilate that subscribe button. Such a small act of obedience is exactly what we need to put the food on the table around here. There's only so many days we can have refried kidney and toe jam hash before I'm absolutely sick of it. Spoiler alert, that ship sailed long ago. Now, I must bid you adieu. I've many things to take care of, and this outro is eating into my day off. Run along now. Have no fear, we'll be here every Tuesday and Thursday to bring you another terrible tale. Go forth, my ghastly gang, and stay spooky.